4, 3.
We'll do it live.
Now we're live! Erin Kennedy. The general craziness of it, the impact on your life.
We have gone through so many stories and we said, you know what? This should not be kept to the two of us. Hi, Megan.
Hi. Every time our open says the general craziness of it, I'm like,
You know, I always, in my brain, my brain always says the general malaise. I think that's just, I have winter madness that is fully inflicted on the whole family right now.
Oh, well, you're up in Minnesota, so I can see that.
Can you
100%.
sit taller, Megan? You have way too much headspace.
Do I?
Yes.
Okay, let me adjust it. I keep trying to, is that better?
Yes.
Are you happier?
Thank you. I'm happier.
Producer Erin.
I'm going to direct
Producer
from
Erin.
my little bench.
Megan, headspace. Megan, microphone. Why can't I hear you? You're muted. All these things you want from me.
My response to producers in my ears with problems was always, that sounds like a producer problem. But I would say it in jest. I would always work to help.
Well, I always just used to yell for the engineering help. Help! Who's in there? Can you send someone down, please?
Had them on speed dial.
I appear to be incapable of fixing technical difficulties. It's just a thing.
That's okay. You're pretty enough. You get away with it.
I don't know about that.
So we are talking to a former news director, management. This is the first news management person we've had on, right?
Yes. And I'm excited about this because there are so many things that I've always wondered. You know, and I always feel like I had some pretty good relationships and, you know, we had good working relationships with almost all my news directors, you know, but there were still some things I just always went, I wonder what, you know, and I want to know the answer to those questions.
Now we're going to know. All right.
What really is happening?
Please welcome former news director, known far and wide for being a wonderful talent scout. Because he found me.
Oh,
please welcome Gary Brown. Hi, Gary.
Hello.
Hi, Gary. Congratulations on finding Erin.
Yes. What was it? Lubbock, Texas, right? Where I found you?
Oh, yes, it was. Good memory.
Lubbock.
Yes.
Lubbock to Providence.
How did you find Erin, Gary? What was that story? How did you see her tape? What happened?
It was a literal VHS, I can tell you that.
Well, yeah, it would have been because I'm old. I'm trying to remember. Did you apply?
Yes. I'm certain I did apply.
Yeah, it was weekend anchor was the job.
There were a lot of moving parts going on.
No, I had two openings. I had two stations, the CBS and Fox. The anchor we were just talking about who left me. She was gone, I think, a year because there was someone who replaced her for like a few months. And then that didn't work out. And then I ended up having to hire a 10 o'clock anchor for the Fox show. And I had a weekend opening. And I remembered saying, I don't know which way we're going to go here, Erin. So Erin came in and interviewed and we were like, 10 o'clock, weekends. And I
remember what I wore. It was a matchy red silk jacket and red silk skirt with like a white
went for the power color.
Yeah, and it's so 90s to look back on it now, even though that wasn't even the 90s when I was interviewing them.
It's a Casper suit.
I was trying because Gary, I mean, I was my early 20s, you know. Yeah. And
you were so nervous, I bet.
Rolling up so nervous. Meet Gary. Well, and this is where I had a lot of family, which Gary, as you know, I'm sure that makes candidates more attractive in a market because it increases the chances that they know the market. East Providence.
Yeah. I knew that was one of the reasons we were interested because you have family. Like, oh, maybe she'll stick around for.
You always pump that up, even if it's just like, oh yes, well, my third cousin with whom I'm very close, he lives in Toledo, Ohio, and I love
familiar with the area. I've always wanted to live here. Yep.
Yes.
Gary, you mentioned though the one anchor that left you. Okay. And you said it like mournfully, like, here's my question. When someone chooses to leave of their own volition, as a news director, is it hard not to take that personally? Do you feel something like that?
Well, when I was a young news director, I probably did.
Okay.
But it's part of the process, you know? I mean, I would probably take it more personally if we were trying to save them and they were keep them and they wanted to stay, but I just lost out because I couldn't come up with enough money or the right job. But otherwise, now I look back on it and it's like, hey, are you really going to stop someone from going to the network when you're in a local station? Probably not. Probably
How
not.
often though do you go to the mat to keep talent?
I've over the years, both as a news director and corporate, because I did 2 different corporate stints where I was the VP of news. There would be times, yeah, where it's
What does that
okay.
mean? Like, what did you have to do to fight for them?
Well, I had to remind everyone of if there was research, which is what the research said. There's always that.
Your Q score. Yep.
Well, a Q score. So no, but just like if they were a recruiter or not.
Recruiter means getting people to tune in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for yes.
FYI, I didn't know that till now. I wonder if I was a recruiter. Was
Megan,
I a
you are a
recruiter?
recruiter.
I'm sure you were, because I knew of you before you knew of me. So
Yes.
yeah. I would say it would be like if it was they wanted certain things in the contract, we try to meet them. It was always hard. It was always a tap dance.
So Gary,
it
what
usually
Megan
came
and
down
I,
to money, or it came down to years, and it came down to, is this going to be no cut or
Right.
you're right. I mean,
we just want to know if we can take it personally that we were booted off the merry-go-round.
Yeah.
Because I do.
I wouldn't. Everyone in this, typically everyone in the business was fired at some point or said, no, thank you. Or
This is gonna come off as a brag,
would
but we're just
never-
gonna live there. When you heard that, like, Megan Glaros, Erin Kennedy, she's pretty great, they were laid off. What did you say?
The first thing I said to myself was, well, it was probably, and I can't speak to it because I wasn't involved, obviously, but sometimes it comes down to, when does your contract come up, or the window, and on the timing of when they have to do this type of thing. And it happens. I mean, I've presided over these things before, so trust me, I know. And and it quite honestly, it sucks. No one wants to do it. No one wants to go through it. And no manager takes any glee in doing it. And I'm sure the bosses at the time were not pleased, because here goes half the morning show away, right? But sometimes it's what has to happen, unfortunately. And we've all been there in one way, shape, or form.
So as a news director, what's the hardest thing? Not one specific moment, but what's the hardest task that you had to do?
Manage people.
Harder than firing? Just dealing.
Yeah. Well,
really?
Well, I said with firing someone. If it doesn't bother you, you need to quit your job as the manager, because it should, regardless if they deserved it or not, because it's humans, it's people, it's lives. It affects more than that person usually. And if it doesn't like stick in your pit of your stomach when you got to do it, it's then you've lost your humanity as a manager, my opinion. I mean, I'll never forget, I had to walk someone after an anchor after the 6 o'clock news for a meeting on a Friday night. I hated it came down like this, but it's how the timing worked out. I had to walk. I said, hey, can you come upstairs with me? And we're making the walk up the
what's
steps.
happening.
Yeah. And I don't play poker well, so my face is like, and I'm also, I mean, I was maybe 30 when I had it, and it's like, and we sit there and it's a very short conversation. They walk in, the GM's there, the business manager's there.
And then you know immediately, if you didn't know when you
the
said
business manager has the yellow notepad, the legal pad, it's
you're
over.
out.
Yeah. Thank you and good night. And it sucks. It just does. And you get anxious all day when you know you have to do it as a boss, and then you do it, and it is what it is.
I don't like that you're humanizing the other side of this, Gary.
Yeah.
Well, someone had to. I should say I'm honored to be the
that way.
first manager to step in the lion's den here,
Yeah.
to be with you all. But no,
We're friendly lions.
Yes, friendly.
I want to know, we had so many clauses in our contracts, Gary. Megan and I have touched on that before. What is the most uncomfortable conversation you've had to have with somebody in regards to certain violations of contract? I'm thinking along the lines of, you gain too much weight, changes to appearance, voice, everything that's in the contract that I would never want to have that conversation.
Right. That page boy haircut looks like crap on you.
Well, you should have gotten that approved first, Megan, and we wouldn't have approved your page boy haircut.
Well, sometimes it depends. It depended on each situation. There's no right or, I mean, look, those are tough conversations and you really can't even have them anymore. Right. But I would, depending on the person, if I could do it in a fun way to maybe not make it like, close the door, let's talk about this, but like kind of make light of something where maybe they would take that and be like, okay, I would try that.
You better go.
Otherwise, I call the talent coach and say, you need to come in and you need to talk to them about this.
I got a lot of stuff from talent coaches.
Well, I had a news director one time who called me, and I was wearing a shirt, and it was like when you had those clothing trades and it had like a giant bow on it. And quite frankly, I don't know why I wore it, because I hate bows. Always have, always will. He called me in and he was like, you look like little Bo Peep. I was looking for your sheep on the weather wall. Can you never wear that again? And I was like, okay. And then another friend, that's very same news director, she had a beautiful like gold, sweater thing on. He said, you look like Nefertiti, Queen of the Nile. Burn it. So that would fall under the fun category, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I was known for times to saying like an anchor come in with a new hair color or new hairstyle. And, I fully admit I was a character as a news director. Fully admit it. And there'd be times I'm like, hey, a hairstyle. So you're prepared to do that every day for the next year? Eyes, I go like, well, we want to. We have these things we shoot. Back in the days, you bring crews in to shoot the talent for talent opens and stuff like that, and they have a look, and then all of a sudden, if it's different, or you take still photos and you do a magazine, because there was a time where TV stations used to send out those magazines with the anchors on the cover.
Yep.
Or like when we had the helicopter in Providence, we had helicopter toys.
Chopper 2.
Chopper 12 toy. And my son still plays with mine. I still have it. It works. And like literally we had the anchors' faces on the packaging.
Oh my gosh. That was the day. I do have a Barbie doll of myself. And
I got my face on a bag of coffee. That's as far as I got.
But stuff like that. And then if the appearance is different, then it's like,
yeah, I get that.
So that would be the only reason really too, in my mind.
Can we circle back though to something that you kind of just alluded to? This, being in management, we saw it changing as we were in the industry. Have contracts changed in regards to that appearance clause? Because now I feel like people are more sensitive to that stuff. Is it not okay now to say, hey, you've gained too much weight?
I don't think it was ever really okay. It's I think they're probably written a little more vague than they were before. I didn't want to go there. Even when I could, I didn't want to go there. I'm like, nope. This is not going to end well for me.
Well, and like Erin and I have always said, if it's something that's a matter of appearance, now it's one thing if it's a crazy haircut that they think is awesome and it's really totally different from the, the set of the tiny helicopter toy, but it's a whole other story when like someone's gained a ton of weight, or in the case Erin talked about before, she knew someone whose face was got broken out and they had to have a conversation with the news director. As a talent, you're completely aware of this already, and chances are you're trying to fix it anyway.
Well, yeah, that but it also depends on the relationship I would have with that anchor.
Yeah,
there were some anchors we chew the fat every day. It was like, sit down. It's like if only we could have the wet bars back in the news director's offices from the 70s, right? We'd probably have a cocktail and talk about things. I mean, that's the kind of, it depends on your relationship. There's some you have, hang on, water.
I understand. We've been there, Gary.
I'm out of practice.
Gotta fake it.
I am not talent, regardless of what I think in my head.
You want to know something? I never sneezed on the air once ever. I don't know how I did that in hindsight. Just remembered about it right now.
Goodness.
Never came out.
You're lucky.
I know. I think so.
I got hiccups a couple of times.
Did you, Erin? What'd you do?
It went on. I had to leave. I don't know. I wish I had that, but that was, again, Gary, we started too early. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Before people
recorded everything. There was me in college anchoring, and thank goodness that tape doesn't exist anymore.
But Gary, you've left the business. Well, you kind of have a toe in.
I never leave.
So tell everybody what you're doing now and why, though, you did leave the news director chair.
Well, it was funny. I never intended to go. I was like, I wanted to be a news director, and I was like, I'll be in a mid-sized market, and I'm cool. I don't need to go to the big city. Never had aspirations. Just didn't. And what happened is as you meet people in the business, work for people keep calling sometimes. And I was lucky that my first news director job, I was 25, and that was in Steubenville. I'd worked there right out of school and then left and bounced around a bunch of markets and came back. And the owner seemed to like me. He then he bought a station in Toledo, which is my hometown. And he was like, they were pretty much, it was like, do you want to go here, Toledo, and launch a Fox newsroom, Fox station from scratch, or do you want to go to Flint? And I'm like, I'm going to do Toledo because I get to build it. And then I left without a job after 2 years.
How did it do, though? How'd the launch? How'd the show go?
Well, it was early Gary Brownisms and stuff. We did things, and we did one show a day. A Fox station just did a 10 o'clock half hour, 35-minute show.
That's a beautiful thing.
And pretty much I'd start the editorial meeting every afternoon with, okay, what's the wild goose chase today? We're going to go after.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of things, and it was really fun, but it was exhausting because I was working like 6-7 days a week. Because I wanted to touch. The anchors work Sunday through Thursday, so I'd come in Sundays because they were there, and then I'd also work Fridays because the weekend folks were there. And it was great in some ways because I got to touch everyone, and they always saw me. But it wore down after a while, and then I left without a job, moved to Phoenix, thinking I was gonna get a job there. And thought I had enough money. You never have enough money when you walk away. No matter what you think, you never do.
Unless it's during COVID, and then the unemployment checks are quite nice.
Well, and then the owner of the station, I worked for him twice, calls me and says, "Where are you?" And I was like, just true story. He's at a truck stop outside of Oklahoma City. And he goes, "Well, you're close to Providence. Turn around."
Close to Providence in Oklahoma City.
Yeah. And they wanted me to go to Providence. And I didn't know New England. I didn't know any of it. So I said, I got to go to Phoenix. I got to do this. Because in my head, I was like, I got to try this. And a couple of weeks later, called again. And I'm like, he's like, would you come and consult me in Providence?
Who is this, Gary? Can you say who it is?
Sandy DePasquale.
Oh, okay.
Sandy owned the station in Providence when I went there.
So this was when it was Lynn TV?
Before Lynn.
Before Lynn, okay.
It was Sunrise. So I went for 2 weeks. He offered me the job, and I was like, this isn't too bad. I'll do it. What the heck? And fast forward years later, so I worked for him, and then it was sold to Lynn, and I was there for that, and I left. He moved on his way. He sold the company, got a new company, would buy and sell stations. I was a news director in San Diego, and he called and goes, I'm buying the Clear Channel TV group. I, need general managers, and I need a VP of news. What do you want to come talk to me about? He goes, GM will be great, but if you come be my VP of news, I'm going to teach you the real business.
Oh, the dark side.
Well, the mergers, acquisitions, the finances, all that stuff.
The business side.
The business side, and he cut me in on the deal because it was private equity. So I'm like, okay, I'll talk to you about that. Had to move from San Diego to Kansas City because that's where he
that
based
was a little rough weather-wise, huh?
Yeah, it deceived me the first year. Winter wasn't too bad, but second year it was blizzard and all that fun. Yes.
I think, Gary, did I apply with you in San Diego?
I don't know. Did you?
I know I applied to San Diego at some moment.
I don't think so, but
okay.
It'd be 30 years for me in TV in May, and so
it's a lot of remembering.
Memory's gone.
But Gary, tell me about talent dynamics. Like, what are you doing now? How did you do that, and how's it going?
Well, it's been around it used to be 30 plus years ago, part of Audience Research and Development, which was a consulting company. It was really big, and it was part of many consulting companies. Then in 2001, it split off into its own separate company. And Sandra Cannell, you see there on the screen, I tell her, and she's like, oh, she really didn't. But I say she kind of invented placement. She's been doing placement since the late 70s. And so she's had this company as a standalone for like over 25 years. And I was with Meredith. This company got sold. New company didn't have my position, so there was no job for me. So I was applying for news director jobs, GM jobs, whatever looked interesting, trying to figure out what's next. And I was talking to her one day, and literally I said, well, I heard you might be selling. And she's like, Sandra's like, for people who've been in the business as long as me and news director, she's kind of like the TV news mom, because she helped people get jobs. She helped all of us news directors out over the years, put us on lists for jobs and stuff like that. And a lot of people currently probably don't know about us because the old slogan was the secret behind your success. Because I would call her when I had an anchor opening and say, hey, I need a main anchor. I can pay this. And she'd give me a list of people.
Well, my agent would always submit me to Talent Dynamics and some of the others. It's essentially, this may be wrong, but almost headhunters in a way.
Kind of in a way, and a little. So I talked to her, and we ended up, Patrick McCreary, who was my boss in Meredith, but we met in Toledo 20 plus years ago when I was launching the Fox station. He was at the CBS. We've been friends. And I called him and I said, hey, what do you think if I said we could do this? And he was in, but he didn't want to run it. He's like, you run it. I don't, and I'm like, okay. So we bought it and closed on the deal in June of last year. And, wanted to, I loved working with talent. People know that. Best part of my trips when I was corporate was walking through the newsroom, talking to folks, fielding questions. I've had anchors who are like, I should be the main anchor. In the middle of the newsroom, say this. And I'm like, okay.
In front of the main anchor.
Right.
No, in front of the main anchor, you're saying I should be the main anchor. Or I had someone say, every time you come, 3 days later, someone's usually fired.
You're like, well.
So there were those type of things. So, for me, it was what I like to do. And, and also help, I always thought I had a good eye for talent. I hired Erin.
I agree.
And I knew I didn't want to be an agent because I did that. Because the last time I saw Erin was when I was an agent visiting Cleveland.
No, I was wasn't it when I was in LA for something?
No,
It was when I was on the talk.
well, the talk too, but also when I went to, no, I don't think I did. I don't remember. Maybe I did. I don't know. It was so funny because so many friends would come when they fill in on the talk from the CBS stations would come through and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to be in town." So I'd head over to
Here we
Universal.
go again.
Here we go.
Back there.
Doing that next Monday with Christine.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So that kind of thing. So no, but I saw it as an opportunity. I mean, with the Great Resignation and all that stuff going on, it was like what Talent Dynamics does is so important. And there's really nothing else out there like it in the industry. So TV stations call us and say, "Hey, I need," a lot of them it's retainer business. Some of it's one time only, but I need an anchor.
Yeah. And Gary, let's talk about that. I know that you haven't been with Talent Dynamics that long, but you've been in the industry long enough to talk about how journalists are leaving en masse right now and how hard it is to get talented people back in the business. I mean, again, I'm just going to say it, me and Megan being two of hundreds who have said, we can't sacrifice this anymore. Our quality of life isn't sustainable on TV news and money isn't what it used to be. It must be really hard to be recruiting people.
Well, I always tell people you don't get into it to make money. If you do, that's a fun byproduct. But and some people have taken me to task for this, and I'm not trying to say that's a calling to be a journalist, but I do believe it's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because the hours you work, the fact when people are running away from some disaster, we're running into it by design. The fact that we're sleeping at the TV station because there's a brush fire, there's a hurricane, there's this, there's that, there's a blizzard. If you're a 9-to-5 type job person, that's not you. And so I also say this, but what journalists do, and I still call myself that because I'll always be, and you'll always be, even though you're out of it.
Yeah.
You're writing the first page of history. So that book my son will read in school, that history book is going to have stories about what we covered. And that's a big deal. And to me, that's a big responsibility. So, that, and never lose sight of that. And so, yeah, but I get why people are getting out, and they are. And a lot of, especially producers, have been the biggest. And it's because there's lots of reasons. I think some of it is, as an industry, could we do more? Yeah. And I think we've realized it and we're trying, but it also starts at the college level. Why is this a good business to go into?
Why is this a good business to go into, Gary? Is it?
Because if you do it right, you get to meet a heck of a lot of interesting people. You get to tell stories and hopefully help create change for the better.
I like that answer.
That's a good answer.
If you do it right.
I like that answer.
But Gary, when I look at the future of TV, even from when, let's say, Erin and I got in, so let's call it like early 2000s to now, there have been so many changes. And we know because of streaming services, because of YouTube, TikTok, everything that exists now that didn't exist in a big way back then. We know there's going to be even more change, and that change is happening so quickly. So if you were to try to take a crystal ball in 20 years into the future, what does the industry look like? Where is it going?
Well, if I could accurately predict that, I'd be able to predict the winning Powerball numbers.
If you find that out, let me know.
And be at the beach in Malibu and be like, "Hi, how you doing?" But no, I started full time in 1993. So, there was one cable news channel,
right?
CNN back then, and HLN. We didn't have computers. We didn't have cell phones really. heck, we were still shooting on 3/4 inch tape.
Yeah, and weather reports were coming in off the Difax maps in the back.
When I got to that station as news director, we still did not have a weather computer.
Uh-huh.
We had a Difax map printing machine. I'm like, oh, this helps me on TV, and a dial-up radar box.
Yep.
And took the maps off the feed. So yeah. So technology has definitely changed things.
Definitely.
In TV early on, I've always said that broadcasters kind of dictated the technology. We want to go live. We figured out how to do live trucks. We want to go live from the air. Figured out how to do it from a helicopter. Want to go live further out. Figured out, put a satellite dish on the back of a truck. That'll do it, right? All these different things. And then eventually the technology surpassed what we needed or wanted and came up with, well, you could do this. So and then we have to keep up with technology all of a sudden, right?
Yep.
I think this is we still have, as long as we're relevant and telling good stories and involved in the community, and that's a big thing. And we kind of, there are some places that are really good about it, other places that aren't. But like you talk about community. When I first started, we had to do these ascertainment breakfasts where community leaders would come to the TV station. We'd have, donuts and coffee, and they'd tell us about the issues and what we're doing wrong.
Did you call it an ascertainment breakfast?
An ascertainment breakfast.
Never heard of that before. Okay.
Because it was required. We had to report this to the government, and then those rules kind of changed. And I may be mistaken, but I remember that's what it was called. And so we'd all be in a conference room, hear this stuff, and then I'd be told why my news that lacks this or that, and they were right. I didn't want to hear it, but and we used to have community affairs directors, and some stations are bringing those positions back, maybe in a different title, and that's really good because I think. I came from a standpoint of cover as much news from as many places as you can. Yeah, that's a check. You got to do that. Then it's own breaking news. Yeah, you got to do that. Own weather. Got to do that. And then you got to do investigative. Okay, fine. And then it's like, okay, but what else is going to differentiate us? And it wasn't about because back in the 90s, someone tried they called it family sensitive news. Oh yeah, this was a thing.
What is that?
All happy?
We're not going to show crime. We're going to put it in context. We're not going to show body bags. It was, but they came up with a name for it, and people tried it, and some people were successful, stuff like that. But I think in some ways we don't need those descriptors. It's just called good journalism. And knowing your market, what your market can take or not take as far as what they want to see, what the threshold is. But to go back to the question, are you going to have 6 newsrooms in a city? Gosh, maybe, but I don't know if the economics are going to support that. Maybe in the largest markets, maybe.
Well, you kind of don't need it now, too. Everything is we had legendary sports anchor Mark Giangreco on a bit ago, and he was saying that even now sports interviews are on a feed.
Yeah.
So everything comes from
your access, your personal access is not the same, right? You're not going and interviewing in some cases it, but it's still when there's local news happens when it's important and we're on. I live in Southern California, so we had that unfortunate mass shooting over the weekend. TV stations were on all day, and that's where people go, right?
Yeah.
You can say, yeah, I go to my phone for the weather or this or that. But you know what? No, we it's still when all heck's breaking loose, people go to their TV, their local stations.
You're right.
And that no one's figured out how to replace that, nor should they, because I don't think you can. And so as long as we are there when they need us and also try to do a better job of offering solutions, not just highlight the problem, but how do we fix it? Our job's not to fix it, hold people accountable to fix it, or offer ideas that could fix it. Then we're doing the best we can.
But what are the economics of only being like the solution to people and only being where they go when there's something wrong? Because then you're not making that money to pay the talent that's excellent to stay in the business and be there.
And family-friendly news doesn't do well. That's why if it bleeds, it leads is a thing.
Well, I always use the analogy of you're driving on a highway and there's a car crash in the opposite direction. What do? Everyone slows down. There's that rubbernecker theory, right?
Yep.
That still exists. I mean, I don't think we should censor that. I call it censoring. Maybe that's too strong a word. People want to know what's happened. If I see a bunch of cop cars going somewhere, I want to know if I see them in my neighborhood.
Same. I'll follow them.
You got to do that stuff. So I don't, but I think if it's gratuitous, like multiple, like you go through a newscast and all you know is everyone who's been jacked, shot, murdered.
We've had newscasts like that for sure.
But if that's all you have, and at the end of the day, if you say, "Gosh, this is pretty heavy,"
or "Gosh, I can't leave this on with my kids in the morning, making breakfast,"
it's hard, but it's also the reality. Like, it is the reality, and how do you deal with? You can't sugarcoat the reality. You can put it in context, but I don't think our job is to filter it.
Answer. Yeah, I hear you.
I think it's to provide context and to go beyond it and just say, okay. And people were doing that yesterday. That what was it? Since the beginning of the year, there's been how many? Like 39 mass shootings. What qualify as mass shootings? And
probably
we're at day 24. So, I mean, that kind of thing. It's like it's perspective. It's like, and we need to do more of that. Like, wow.
Yeah. Gary, we're going to move real quick through our questions. Craziest story.
Okay.
Does it involve Mark Zinni?
No.
Or Aaron Kennedy?
No. It involves Sean Daly.
I toe the line, Meg.
Oh, I know.
It involves Sean Daly in Providence.
Oh, yay, Sean.
There was a story. There was like all these people were saying there was like this sea creature in the ocean out of Fall River, New Bedford.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like we sent Sean out to check it out. We figured out this is going to be nothing. You got these people who are like, it was biting into the teeth, and these people are saying this on camera, and they're believing it, right? We weren't getting pranked. And Sean had this innate ability to get. Like when I would hire, and Providence was the best place. It's like I didn't say that I was hiring, I was casting. I didn't want everyone to be the same. Everyone had a little something different to give, right? And they didn't look alike, didn't act alike. And Sean was this veteran reporter who had this innate ability to ask the obvious question that some people wouldn't ask.
Well, Sean's line was always, show me. Show you thought about show me. What was it like?
Yeah. And our brand was Eyewitness News. And so it was like perfect. And he did this, and he would do, and he kept rolling when he would ask questions, when he would do an interview, and he'd let that play. He listened to what the person was saying without just asking his next planned question. It was like, so they did that, you did this, it was always great TV, and it was memorable TV. So literally that we did the story, and we were not the number one station. We were probably, I would say we were an aggressive station. How's that for terminology? And so we did it that night. We had our courtroom artists we would use, based off of their description, draw up what this thing looked like. And it was like some sea urchin thing, like I don't know what. I used to have it. They framed it for me. So I get there overnights the next day. And we didn't promote this for days out. It was like day of. And the assistant news director comes in and goes, "We're not doing another story. It's crazy. These people are nuts, this and that." And I go, look at the numbers. And I go, "Hey, 20 share at 6:00 last night."
Wow.
People
He goes, "We're doing another story."
Yeah. Many follow-ups.
Yep. So that was the craziest story.
Okay. I'm going to tag Sean in this one then. Craziest viewer letter or comment?
I put them out of my mind. But I was an assignment editor when I first started. So every phone call to the newsroom would come through the assignment desk.
Oh my God.
Tough job.
And I was also the 6:00 producer. And it was in Steubenville, right out of school. I'm 21 years old. And this guy would call, "Yin's guys need to check out blah, blah, blah." It was always like, it was the same person. And I always started with "Yin's guys need to." It was a story. It was the talent needs to change. You need to tell them not to dress like that. Or you just answer the phone and I'd be like, "News 9. And they're like, and drop every expletive in America at the time. And that was the phone call.
There he is again.
They still call newsrooms. Yep. Most dangerous assignment?
That I had personally, I never really.
How about that you sent somebody on where you were kind of like nervous sending them?
Oh gosh. Probably 9/11 when we sent people down to New York City because we didn't know what we were gonna face. Right? We just get on the road and go. We were 4-5 hours away, drive time. Didn't know what we'd get, when we'd get it, if we'd get it. We just didn't know. There were so many unknowns. So I'd probably say that.
Tell me you worked in TV news without telling me you worked in TV news.
I have Ron Burgundy's autographed book.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Longest time on air?
Never was on air as a reporter. I mean, we've been on the air stations I was running like 20 some hours covering usually something bad.
Were you there, Gary, for the station nightclub fire?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a long time on air. Wasn't that more than 20 hours straight without any breaks, too?
It was like 28, I think it started.
Yeah.
During Letterman, and we didn't go off the air till, I want to say, 8:00 Friday night.
And that was when, weren't you also just tapping producers in the newsroom saying, we need people on air to switch out? And that was how Audrey got her start, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're on the air. I lived nearby, so when the station called me, I went to the scene because I was 5 minutes away, and I was there all night, and I was running a live truck, and sometimes shooting video. And then the cavalry showed up at 7:30 in the morning, and I was able to drive to the station, and then was there all night. It was probably everyone. I mean, it's kind of a blur, if I'm being honest.
Those days usually are.
Yeah.
But it was where I think, in a roundabout way, going through that as a newsroom, the relationships were all solidified between me and them and I.
It's like going through a war.
Yeah. In some ways, it was something they never prepare you for, and something that you just instinctively, your gut takes over, and you kind of you kind of go on autopilot and you make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Some TV talent you learned in the industry, life lesson for others.
I would say it's the grass is always not greener.
You know what my grandpa always used to say? The grass is greener, but you still got to mow it.
Well, some would say the call letters, only thing that changes is the money in the call letters. But I mean, I think you look at every place you went in your careers. Do you regret making those changes? Probably not. But do you wonder, what if I would have stayed?
Yes. I wonder, what if I would have taken that job instead of that one?
Yeah.
What would I be doing? Where would I be living? Yeah, I do that sometimes.
And you know, and I look at it all as a journey, and you meet great people because you move. I wouldn't have met Erin if I wasn't in Providence.
Your life would not have been complete. I agree.
Clearly.
Complete.
You know, and we were talking about some of the mutual people we worked with, and I also always tell people, if you stay in the business long enough, you end up knowing everyone.
Everyone.
It's a small business. Yeah.
It really is. It really is. And you know, I've been very lucky. Everything I wanted to do, I was able to do. And I actually was on the air once as reporting. When I was news director in Steubenville, we had flooding. And we rented a helicopter with live gear. And there was no one around to send up in the helicopter because it's a small market. Like, we have maybe 2-3 reporters dayside. That's it, right? Everyone's out. And they're like, well, we were under control. So I'm like, okay, I'll go with the chopper. I'll go show them where to go. Because this was not in the metro part of the market. Well, next thing I know, the TV station breaks in, showing me in the helicopter lifting off from the station, from the tower cam, because the tower's right there too. I'm like, I'm afraid of heights, and like, you're in a helicopter and you're looking, and it's glass all in the front, and I'm like, oh, this, and we're in between guide wires for a tower, 1,000-foot tower, so you know, okay. And then they're like, we want you to go live at 5 o'clock. Okay. Or when you
welcome to the life of a reporter.
Yep.
I want you to go live. And I'm like, okay, well, I didn't bring a notepad. I didn't really, wasn't really prepared for this. My job was just to shoot the stuff in there. And I'm like, okay, well, remember what you would tell everyone what to do. Tell me what you see.
Exactly.
And that's it.
And that's what it is. And then, we flew back because we were paying by the hour. So, we weren't keeping that thing up for all the shows. We're like, get our stuff and get the heck back.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I was doing set pieces that, like, they had me on the set at 6 and 11 that night, or the newsroom or whatever. And I would just talk over the video. Yeah. But that was it.
That was it. Well, Gary Brown, I'm glad you are still involved in helping find good people who can do this good work, because I do still, like you said, there's nothing I would change in my career, because it's shaped who I am, and I've worked with the best people in the whole wide world.
And some that aren't so great, but you still learn from them too.
You learn from every situation, every person.
Yep.
And it's like, think about this. Like, my dad was a banker, right? I've been able to see things, do things, meet people I never would have been able to do if I was doing a job like that.
We got stories, don't we?
Yeah.
Oh, the books, 6 record set, or whatever. I mean, the things we could say and do. And, I know there's a lot of negative, and I'm trying to be Mr. Positive, I guess, but it's still, when it's done right, it's fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it can be fun. It's stressful, no doubt. There's crazy people like me as bosses, all that stuff. But if you really are in it for the right reasons, you have fun. Mm-hmm. And there's times where your number's up and you're done, and they call you to the office.
Gotta take that walk up the stairs.
Take the walk up the stairs. But you know what? it doesn't define you. You move on. You both have moved on.
Yeah.
And you know what? Do you miss it? I'm guessing you probably do. Now I'm turning the tables on you too.
I miss it sometimes. I don't miss it as a whole. I miss moments and I miss the people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just still get excited when there's a big weather event, honestly. I never disliked being on the air and doing the performing end of it. What was hard for me to stomach was the other stuff, the hours, the time away from my kids, the impact on
Volatility.
health and everything else. Yeah, that was the part that got hard. I always loved the on air. I still do. Give me somewhere to perform. I'll do it anytime.
Okay, people in Chicago, she's available.
She's not.
Okay, she just doesn't want to have crazy hours. You know what I mean? And like
you'll come in, do the 4, 5, and 6.
We're gonna need you on Christmas, and then can you come in the next day, and then New Year's Eve, and then it's be nightmares.
No, it's for all the negative. There's a lot of positive, and you can't lose sight of it. And it's been rough, especially with COVID.
Yeah,
I mean, and then the protest, and people have and the distrust of the media that's out there, and we're the enemy and all this and that. We're not. We're just trying to tell the truth, and we're trying to let people know what's going on. And
it really is not malicious, everybody.
No.
just want to tell the story and go home and eat my
ramen
noodles.
Do our story, write our web story, do the cut down version.
Do the look live, do a social media version.
The social media stuff, and go home.
All the things.
Yeah, right? I mean, look, but like, I still miss it when there's a big story. I miss that vibe in the newsroom. I mean, yeah. I think I've been around it since I was a kid. I had a next door neighbor who was a TV weatherman. And so I never knew anything else.
He shaped your life.
I didn't.
Megan, you had that effect on your neighbor's kids.
I'm sorry,
imagine.
over there.
Well, I thought I was going to be a meteorologist. Then I realized all the math involved. I'm like,
No.
Back when those DIFAX maps were in. Woo!
No.
Oh, you get the models done for you.
Yeah.
All right, Gary Brown, thank you for coming on. It's been really nice to catch up. Yeah.
Great to see you both.
Now you have to be a headhunter for us, though, too, to get us some really cool guests on here, okay?
Ooh, yeah.
Well, I've paved the way that it is not all, doesn't have to all be negative.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Certainly. Yeah. I mean, plenty of people have stories to tell. Some are good, some are bad.
And we'll take
all the stories I could tell.
Our experiences, mine and Erin's, are a mix of both, like life, like everything in your life. Nothing is ever one way or the other. I agree.
There's nuance. Yep.
The world is nuanced. And, hey, look where everyone is today. Right?
Exactly. All right. Hey, Gary, my best to you and your family too, okay?
All right. Take care.
Good to see you. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.